Hello, you are listening to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Your host, Erica Saccoccio, invites you to join her community of passionate and inspiring leaders in the ECE field, where she discusses, reflects, and shares the best ways to invest in our children, families, teachers, and community. Because after all, we know they are the heartbeat of any successful program.
The best way to make a good impression is to start with the great first step. And I know that speaking to large groups and running a Q&A panel might be scary for most. I have to tell you, I know that my directors do not love getting in front of a larger group of parents. So sometimes when you ask them to run orientations for families or open houses, they get really nervous. And so my goal today is to really help people feel more confident. I love talking to people, so this is not an area I struggle with, but I do have plenty of areas that I do, but this is just not one of them. So I want to share my best ideas, tips, and strategies. This is Erica with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to our group. If this is one of my daily listeners, you know I love you. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how you can be super successful with running a Q&A panel for your childcare center. The first thing you want to do is you want to identify your key goals for the orientation. It could be introducing your staff. It could be explaining your curriculum, and I highly recommend that you do that during an orientation. It could be just talking about the details of your daily routines. For instance, maybe you aim to clarify your center's educational philosophy or just daily schedules. Clear goals ensure that orientation has a purpose and it has a direction. Create a structured outline to cover each objective effectively. For example, if you're highlighting your discipline policy and that's your goal, then you want to make sure you have a dedicated segment to explain it thoroughly. And the benefits of this is when you have a well-defined objective, it keeps your event focused and purposeful, and it helps the parents understand what your center offers. Now, you can have really great goals and objectives, but you need to have a good schedule. So create an agenda that includes staff introductions, informal presentations, interactive sessions, and breaks. Ensure that there are smooth transitions between segments, just like we do with our students. For example, start with a welcome, move into your staff introductions, and then present your key policies, and conduct an interactive Q&A and conclude with the casual meet and greet. You see, a well-structured schedule prevents overload and it keeps the parents engaged. So use scheduling tools to draft and adjust your agenda as needed. For example, you might need to extend time for popular segments based on parent feedback. I know that in my program, parents really love to hear about the curriculum and how teachers implement it and what the day looks like for their child. They usually want to hear less about policies. So sometimes there's that little conflict because as owners or directors, we really want to make sure that these new parents know all about the policies, what time to pick up and when to pay and all those things. A lot of those things can really be handled through your handbook, through reminders, through your parent letter. The whole point of this Q&A session is to get to know each other and be able to be responsive to your families. So a balanced schedule helps maintain that energy and ensures that all the key topics are covered effectively. Now, we've got the schedule. We know what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. How are we going to present it? So you want to craft an effective and visual presentation. So develop something that's visually engaging, that it's high quality, that you use infographics so there's not so much text. For example, you can use a slideshow to show a typical day at the center with visuals and various activities and routines. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, I did create an episode that aired yesterday on how to do that for a meet and greet for your teachers and introductions. So all the mechanics will work there as well. Visual enhancement helps people with understanding and retention. You can use simple tools like Canva. Anybody can use Canva. If I can use Canva, you can. If you're maybe a little bit of an older owner or director and you're really comfortable with PowerPoint, that's okay. You can use PowerPoint to create professional slides as well. And you want to use it as a complementary to your verbal content, not reading it to people. Please don't read to people. Use a flow chart on emergency procedures that can help clarify complex processes in your program. So you want to make it as simple as possible for people to understand. So effective visuals do just that. They make information accessible and memorable, and it aids to better communication for your parents. So now we've got our goals, we've got our schedule, and we have our presentation. Now we're going to incorporate those interactive and engaging elements. So for this section, I would say, let's introduce features like live polls, real-time Q&A platforms, and interactive demos. For instance, you can use an app for live polls, and then you can share the information through the Q&A. There's lots of ways to do it. You can even ask Q&A at the beginning of the event and then run the Q&A in the middle of the event, and you can take those real questions, just like we could do here on the podcast. When you send in a question, we can answer. Actually, this gives me a great idea. I think maybe we'll start to do some live streams. I would love that. I hope you would love that too. I think we're going to go ahead and do that for next month. So, interactive elements keep parents engaged, and they provide immediate feedback. So using digital tools for real-time interactions really can be beneficial. And again, being engaging, being dynamic. You don't want to be boring for sure, and you want to foster active participation. And again, this is where you're rolling it out. This is where you are putting together your culture of what you expect at your program. I know at my program, we love parents to talk. I hate being the only one who talks. You wouldn't think that, since I have a podcast and I'm sitting here by myself, talking to myself in a booth, right? But really, I love talking to people. So I'm hoping that those people will talk back to me. So being engaging is just so important. And as a childcare owner, it's such a great way to really know your families and make those real, true relationships. So let's get into how do we set it up. Setting up a Q&A segment. Make sure that you allocate a specific time for the Q&A and prepare some common questions. Offer multiple ways for parents to submit their questions, like digital forms or written cards. For example, categorize questions into topics such as daily routines or curriculum so that you stay on topic. Because if you just have people just shooting questions at you, it's going to end up feeling like a 20 questions, almost like a Jeopardy, with people just shooting things that are not connected together. So when you have a well-managed Q&A, you address concerns and you build trust. And designate somebody to moderate the questions. It shouldn't be you. If you're the leader of the program, it shouldn't be you, because you should be on the panel with your team. So provide clear, informative answers. For instance, using a moderator to ensure that the sessions run smoothly and all questions are covered. And again, a Q&A clarifies any doubts and it enhances parents' confidence in your center. Because after all, I know that's what I want. I want my parents to know they made the right choice when they picked my center. And not just based on, did we have, the best playground, or did we have the best prices? I want them to know the people behind the brand, the people who they're going to work with every day. And so that is super important. And that's why I said your teachers also need to be on the panel in all levels of staff. Have your van drivers on. Have your lunch folks on. Have the secretary. Ask those, your billing team. Have all of those types of people on your Q&A panel. Now, we've got to master time, and we've got to do good time management for a seamless experience. So implementing effective time management strategies, such as including a detailed agenda, timers for each segment. Oh, you definitely need that. And a dedicated timekeeper, because if not, it can go awry. So, for example, schedule buffer periods in between sessions for transitions and setups. Because proper time management ensures that all segments are covered and the event runs smoothly. So monitor your time closely and adjust as needed. For instance, if a presentation ends early, use a little extra time for additional Q&A or interaction. Effective time management prevents the event from feeling rushed, and it helps keep it organized. So as we start to wrap up, there are two other areas I want to cover. You want to make sure that you are gathering feedback. And I will say that a lot, and I think I probably will say that in almost every episode. Because if you want real, genuine relationships, it takes communication back and forth, not one way or the other. It isn't the parents constantly blasting, questions at you and demands at you. And it certainly isn't you constantly regurgitating your handbook to them. It's meaningful things that are meaningful to them, things that are meaningful to you. It is how you build your culture. It's an open collaboration. It is our community. It's a school community. Yes, of course, you are the leader of that community and you have a huge amount of say as to what happens in your four walls, as you should, but you're not the only one who should have a say. So feedback helps identify strengths and areas for improvement. It's certainly when you're running a high quality program, that is a given. So using survey tools to gather responses and data can help you with necessary adjustments. And if you are somebody who's part of a quality rating system, that is part of what you do anyway. So what better way than to do it at your orientation? It also helps you save time, right? Rather than having to have additional meetings with families so that you make that, 4 or 5 times a year or how often you meet with your families. This is a great way to check one of those meetings right off that they're already at. So gather that feedback. And lastly, make sure that you send some type of follow-up communication to summarize what was really important about that event. Share any additional resources that maybe you didn't have at the event that came up during the Q&A. Include links to online parent handbooks, summaries of main policies, maybe even links to other resources that are outside of your program. If a parent really wanted to know more about, let's say your program is Montessori and you wanted to have a better understanding about how Montessori began and a little bit more about those dynamics, send them a link to a few of the resources that you use to support what you're doing at your school. Follow-up communication just really helps enforce important information and keeps parents connected. So I hope that this helps you feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more engaged with the process. Now, there are some other aspects as well that you have to consider. You have to prepare the space. Make sure that you prepare your space, that it is clean, it is organized, and set up for interaction. Make sure that there's seating for visibility and comfort, and set up areas for presentations and interactive activities. And the interactive activities should be further away from where people are seated. For instance, arrange seats in a semicircle to ensure that there is clear sight and that everybody can see the demo stations and just the way that you would set up for your students. You want to make sure that they are separate areas. If you have activities that are really loud in your demo sessions, you probably don't want them right near your Q&A panel. So make sure you think about that. You also want to make sure that you have the equipment that you need. So gather necessary equipment like projectors, your microphones, your sound systems, your laptops, your tablets. Make sure you check everything. Prepare materials like handouts or brochures. And again, test, check for batteries. Make sure you have batteries, extra batteries or cables on hand to make sure that you've done all this preparation. The worst thing is like the mic doesn't work because you forgot to grab a set of batteries. So That's it for today. I really, really hope that this has really helped you or inspired you in some way to get outside of your comfort zone and start doing some Q&A panels. And not only, you know what? Not only in your four walls. Once you start to get real comfortable with being on panels, presenting on panels, get outside of your school and go talk on other panels, whether you join associations, whether you're at legislative panels with lawmakers talking about how we are going to save the childcare industry, all of those things. I think it's really important. So I hope you enjoyed today's tips and you want to support our show. Consider buying me a cup of tea because I don't drink coffee, and hit that support the show link. Your support helps bring more valuable content and insight. It will help you grow your childcare center, and not only your center, but also making a big impact on your community. So as always, thank you and have a great day.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.